The emergency signal reached the Galactic Council chambers on Velthros Prime during what should have been a normal day. High Counselor Zeroth, an ancient being made of living crystal, had just started the meeting when red warning lights began to flash across the room. "We have a message coming in from the Outer Rim," said Sub-Counselor Mevrock, his many tentacles moving quickly over the communication controls. "The danger level is set to extinction." The large holographic screen in the center of the room came to life. It showed the symbol that every species in the galaxy feared, the mark of the Varketh Dominion. The 47 representatives from different worlds all stopped talking. The Varketh were destroyers. They had turned entire star systems into dust over the past 3,000 years. No one had ever stopped them. The face of Supreme Commander Thalax appeared on the screen. His scaled skin was dark green, and his yellow eyes showed no kindness. He smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Dear Council members," Thalax began, his voice full of pride, "I am sending this message to let you know our plans. The Dominion has found a new world to take. A small blue planet in the Sol system. The creatures living there call it Earth." Whispers spread through the chamber. Several representatives looked at each other with worry in their eyes. Zerath moved closer to the screen. "Earth, you mean the human homeworld?" "Yes, that one. We have put together the biggest invasion fleet in our history. 12,000 warships. 4 million soldiers. We leave very soon." Ambassador Kethra of the Mulveri Collective stood up from her seat. Her skin glowed with soft blue light, which meant she was alarmed. "Supreme Commander, I must tell you not to do this. The humans are not like other species we have seen," Thalax laughed. It was an ugly sound. "I have read your reports about them. They are primitive. They have never even left their own solar system. They spend most of their time fighting each other. They will fall in days." "You do not understand," Kethra said, her voice shaking. "Their primitive nature is exactly what makes them dangerous. They grew up on a death world. Their planet has earthquakes, volcanoes, hurricanes, and animals that can kill. And somehow, they not only survived, but became the dominant species." "You are being foolish," Thalax said. "We have taken death worlds before," Counselor Vrax of the Centauri Federation spoke next. He was a tall being with 4 arms and silver skin. "Supreme Commander, our scouts have watched humans for many years. They do something called war for fun. They watch fake battles and call it entertainment. They discovered how to split the atom, and instead of celebrating, they built weapons with it. Very big weapons," Thalax growled. "Your fear is embarrassing. When Earth becomes a Varketh colony, you will all remember this day and feel shame for your weakness." The transmission ended. The screen went dark. The council chamber exploded with noise. Representatives shouted over each other. Some wanted to help Earth. Others wanted to stay out of it completely. A few thought there was nothing anyone could do against the Varketh fleet anyway. Zeroth made a loud ringing sound from his crystal body, and everyone went quiet. "We cannot fight them," the High Counselor said sadly. "The Varketh fleet is stronger than all our militaries put together, but we can watch. We will send observation drones to the Sol system. Perhaps this invasion will finally stop the Varketh. Or perhaps we will watch another world die. Or perhaps," Kethra said in a soft voice, "we are about to see something none of us expect." The council voted to send the drones. Whatever was going to happen, the whole galaxy would be watching. On Earth, nobody knew what was coming. It was a regular Tuesday. People went to work, children went to school, and life continued as it always had. The 8 billion humans on the planet had no idea that the most dangerous military force in the galaxy was heading straight for them, in New Mexico. At a small observatory in the desert, a young astronomer named Danny Price was working the night shift. He was 28 years old, with messy brown hair and glasses that kept sliding down his nose. His job was to look for asteroids that might hit Earth someday. It was usually boring work, but tonight something strange appeared on his screen. "What the hell is that?" Danny whispered to himself. His computer showed a cluster of signals at the edge of the solar system, past Neptune. Hundreds of them. Then thousands. They were moving together, heading inward toward the sun, toward Earth. Danny checked his equipment 3 times. Everything was working correctly. The signals were real. He called his supervisor. It's an older man named Dr. William Grant, who had been studying space for 40 years. "Bill, you need to see this," Danny said into the phone. "I'm picking up something weird near Neptune. Lots of signals, all moving together." Dr. Grant sighed. He was eating dinner with his wife and did not want to be disturbed. "Danny, it's probably just equipment problems. Those old sensors act up sometimes. Reset the system and try again." 3 times. "Bill, I'm serious. This looks like a fleet of something. Ships, maybe." There was a long pause on the phone. "Danny, are you feeling okay? Did you sleep last night?" "I'm not crazy, Bill. Please, just come look at it." But Dr. Grant did not come. He told Danny to go home and get some rest. The signals were obviously a glitch. Danny saved all the data anyway. Something told him it was important. He stayed at the observatory all night, watching the signals move closer and closer to Earth. Across the world, a few other astronomers noticed the same thing. In China, a researcher named Dr. Liu Wei saw the signals and reported them to his government. In Russia, a military satellite detected unusual activity near the outer planets. In Australia, an amateur astronomer with a homemade telescope saw flashes of light. Where there should have been only darkness, none of them knew what they were seeing. None of them could have guessed the truth. The Varkith fleet traveled through space at speeds that human scientists thought were impossible. Commander Thalak stood on the bridge of his flagship, a massive ship called the Devourer of Worlds. Through the viewing windows, he could see thousands of other ships around him, all heading toward the same destination. "How long until we reach the target planet?" Thalak asked. 17 standard cycles, his navigator replied. "Less than 1 rotation of their moon." Thalak nodded with satisfaction. He had conquered many worlds in his career, but this one felt special. The humans were so primitive, so unprepared. This would be his easiest victory yet. He imagined the humans seeing his fleet for the first time. The terror on their faces, the begging for mercy. He had seen it many times before, on many different worlds. Every species eventually realized that resistance was pointless. The Varkith always won what Thalak did not know. What he could not possibly understand was that humans were different. They had grown up on a planet that tried to kill them every single day. They had survived ice ages, plagues, famines, and wars. They had looked death in the face countless times and refused to give up. The Varkith had never faced anything like humanity before. They had conquered species who valued peace, species who valued survival, species who knew when to surrender. Humans did not surrender. They did not know how, and the galaxy was about to find out what that meant. The Varkith fleet came out of hyperspace beyond Neptune, like a wall of metal stretching across the darkness. Supreme Commander Thalak stood on the bridge of his ship and looked at his armada with pride. 12,000 warships, 4 million soldiers. The largest invasion force in the history of his species? "Begin scanning the target planet," he ordered. His tactical officer worked the controls, then stopped. His face showed confusion. "Commander, I am detecting about 8 billion life forms on the surface." 8 billion? Thalak repeated. "On one planet? That cannot be right. The readings are correct, Commander. Also, they have no planetary defense system, no space stations, no unified military command. Their weapons are primitive, projectiles and chemical explosives, mostly." Thalak showed his teeth in a hungry smile. "They truly are savages. Set course for Earth. We will use standard invasion procedures." As the fleet moved toward the blue planet, the Galactic Council's observation drones recorded everything. Back on Velthros Prime, the council members watched in grim silence. They knew what was coming. They had seen it many times before. Earth detected the alien fleet when it passed Mars. Radio telescopes around the world picked up strange signals from thousands of unknown objects. Scientists in dozens of countries saw the same thing at the same time. Within hours, the news had spread everywhere. Television, internet, social media, everyone knew. Aliens were coming to Earth, and they did not look friendly. World leaders held an emergency meeting at the United Nations. They argued for hours. Some wanted to surrender immediately. Others wanted to prepare for war. A few suggested trying to talk to the aliens and find out what they wanted. But while the politicians argued, something unexpected happened. In rural Kentucky, there lived an old man named Carl Henderson. He was 72 years old and had spent his whole life believing that aliens existed somewhere in the universe. He had built his own radio equipment in his garage, spending his retirement savings on antennas and transmitters. His neighbors thought he was crazy. When Carl saw the news about the alien fleet, he did not panic. He did not hide. He went to his garage, turned on his equipment, and said hello. Attention alien ships. Carl broadcast on every frequency he could reach. This is Carl Henderson of Earth. Welcome to our solar system. What brings you folks by? He did not expect an answer, but he got one. Human. A harsh voice crackled through his speakers. I am Supreme Commander Thalax of the Varkith Dominion. Your world now belongs to us. Give up immediately, or we will destroy you. Carl scratched his chin and thought about this for a moment. Then he keyed his microphone again. Well now, that does not sound very friendly. Are you sure you want to do this? We do not take kindly to threats around here. On Velthros Prime, the council members could not believe what they were seeing. Was this human actually challenging the most feared military force in the galaxy? An old man with homemade radio equipment? Thalax did not bother answering. He ordered his ships to fire missiles at the major cities of Earth. Hundreds of weapons launched toward the planet, each one powerful enough to destroy an entire city. What happened next shocked everyone in the galaxy. The United States Space Force, which most people on Earth thought was just for show, suddenly activated a network of satellites that had been launched in secret over the past 10 years. These satellites carried special weapons designed to knock asteroids away from Earth within minutes. They had destroyed 93% of the incoming missiles. The remaining 7% were shot down by anti-missile systems from the United States, Russia, China, and Israel. These countries had been enemies for decades, but when faced with destruction from space, they worked together without question. Not a single alien missile reached a city. Impossible, Thalax whispered. They stopped a full attack. How? They have no shields, no advanced technology. His tactical officer checked the readings again. Commander, their weapons appear to be kinetic in nature. They simply threw fast-moving objects at our missiles. Very fast objects. On Earth, people watched the sky light up with explosions and realized something incredible. They had survived the first attack. The aliens had tried to destroy them, and they had failed. President Linda Hayes addressed the world that night. She spoke from a secure location, her face calm but her eyes full of fire. People of Earth, she said, we are not alone in the universe, and it seems our new neighbors want to hurt us. I will not pretend this is not scary, but I want you to remember something. We have faced destruction before. Ice ages, diseases, world wars. We survived them all, and we will survive this too. She paused and looked directly into the camera. To the Varkith Dominion, I have only this to say. You have made a terrible mistake. Turn back now, or face the consequences. Humanity does not give up. Humanity does not kneel. And when you threaten our home, our families, our children, we fight back. With everything we have, until our last breath, across the planet, people watched with tears in their eyes. Enemies became friends. Old arguments were forgotten. For the first time in human history, all 8 billion people on Earth were united against a common enemy. The Galactic Council observed this with growing amazement. Did you see that? Kethra said to High Counselor Zareth. They stopped a full Verketh bombardment with primitive weapons, and they did it in minutes. Working together. Countries that have hated each other for generations suddenly cooperating like they had practiced for years. I saw, Zareth replied. His crystal body pulsed with an emotion he could not name. And I am beginning to understand why our scouts warned us about these creatures. What do you mean? Zeroth watched the screens showing Earth's response. Factories were already switching from making cars to making weapons. Scientists who had competed against each other were now sharing their research freely. Volunteers were lining up by the millions, ready to fight. They are not united by religion or government or culture, Zeroth observed. They are united by stubbornness, by pure refusal to accept defeat. It is as if the entire species has decided together that they would rather die than submit to anyone. Is that not madness? Perhaps. Or perhaps it is something else. Something we have forgotten how to do. Something the Varkith never knew. Commander Thalux stared at his tactical displays in disbelief. His first attack had failed completely. For the first time in his military career, he felt something cold in his stomach. Something that might have been doubt. But he pushed it away. He had 4 million soldiers and 12,000 ships. These humans had stopped one attack with luck and tricks. They could not stop an invasion. Prepare the landing forces, he ordered. We will take this planet the hard way. Ground assault. City by city if we must. His officers obeyed, but some of them exchanged worried looks. They had all heard the stories about humans now, a species that split atoms and built weapons. A species that watched violence for entertainment. A species that had spent its entire history fighting and surviving against impossible odds. Maybe, just maybe, this invasion would not be as easy as they had thought. On Earth, Danny Price had been recruited by something called the Global Defense Initiative. His skills at tracking objects in space made him valuable. He worked alongside scientists from 30 different countries, all focused on one goal: survival. The alien fleet is entering the space around our moon, Danny reported to Colonel Maria Santos, a stern woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. We have about 6 hours before they can land troops. Colonel Santos nodded. Then we have 6 hours to show these aliens what humans are made of. Get me every military commander on the planet. We have a war to plan. Danny looked out the window at the night sky. Somewhere up there, thousands of alien ships were preparing to invade his home. He should have been terrified. Instead, he felt something else. Something that surprised him. He felt angry. How dared these creatures come to his planet and threaten his people? How dare they assume humans would just give up? He turned back to his work with new energy. The aliens wanted a fight. They were going to get one. The Varkith landing ships came down on Earth like a swarm of metal insects. Supreme Commander Thalix had expected some resistance. Maybe a few brave fighters who would die quickly before the rest surrendered. Instead, he found himself in the most brutal ground war in the recorded history of galactic conflict. The first landing zone was in the plains of central Kansas. Thalix chose it because the land was flat and there were not many people living there. He thought this would make things easier. He did not know that Kansas was home to Fort Riley, one of the biggest military bases in the United States. The Varkith soldiers came out of their ships in perfect formation. Their plasma rifles glowed with deadly energy. They had conquered 100 worlds. They were the best soldiers in the galaxy. They lasted less than 1 hour. The humans did not fight like any species the Varkith had ever seen. They did not stand in neat lines or follow predictable patterns. They hid in buildings, in holes in the ground, in drainage pipes. They attacked from everywhere at once. They used weapons the Varkith had never encountered before: homemade bombs, poisonous chemicals, even sharp pieces of metal launched from simple spring devices. A young sergeant named Eddie Martinez became famous across the planet when videos showed him destroying a Varkith armored vehicle. He used only a pickup truck, a tank of gas, and a lighter. He drove the truck straight at the alien vehicle, jumped out at the last second, and watched the explosion from a safe distance. These humans are insane. One Varketh officer reported to Thalix before his radio went dead forever. They do not fear death. They laugh at it. One of them charged at our position while screaming something we could not translate. We do not understand these creatures. On Velthros Prime, the Galactic Council watched the ground war with a mixture of horror and fascination. The humans were losing soldiers, certainly. But for every human who died, 5 Varkith soldiers died with them. Their ability to handle pain is extraordinary, observed Counselor Vrax. I have seen humans keep fighting with wounds that would make any other species fall down and die. One of them took a piece of metal out of his own leg, burned the wound closed with a hot knife, and went back to fighting within minutes. It is how they evolved, Kethra explained. Humans were persistent predators. They could not run faster than the animals they hunted, so they simply chased them until the animals collapsed from exhaustion. Their bodies are built for pain, for suffering, for continuing when every logical creature would quit. And their weapons, Vrax continued, shaking his head. They have created chemical mixtures designed to cause maximum pain to living things. They call them pepper spray and tear gas. They used them on their own people to control crowds. The council members sat in uncomfortable silence. This was deeply disturbing information. The war continued across the planet. The Varketh established a base in Eastern Europe, but they faced the combined forces of Russia and Ukraine. These two countries had been fighting each other for years. Now they stood side by side against the alien invaders. Old enemies became brothers. In Southeast Asia, the Varketh tried to advance through the jungles of Vietnam. They quickly learned why so many armies throughout human history had failed in those same jungles. The terrain was brutal. The heat was unbearable. And the human fighters who lived there had been perfecting guerrilla warfare for generations. But the most terrible battle came when the Varketh tried to capture New York City. They expected a modern city full of soft, weak civilians who would run away at the first sign of danger. Instead, they found 8 million people who had grown up watching movies about alien invasions and were absolutely furious that their science fiction nightmares had become real. The Battle of Manhattan lasted 3 weeks. The Varketh advanced block by block, building by building. At every turn, they met resistance. Office workers threw furniture from tall buildings. Construction workers used their power tools as weapons. Taxi drivers used their cars as battering rams. An elderly woman named Dorothy Walsh became an international hero. She was 81 years old and lived alone in a small apartment building in Brooklyn. When Varketh soldiers tried to enter her building, she met them at the door with a shotgun, a baseball bat, more anger than anyone had ever seen. She killed 7 aliens before her neighbors came to help her. News cameras captured the whole thing. I survived the London bombings when I was a little girl, Dorothy told reporters afterward. I watched my city burn during World War II. You think I am going to let some overgrown lizards take my home now? Not a chance. Supreme Commander Thalix watched his army bleed. He had lost 1/4 of his ground forces in the first month. The humans showed no signs of giving up. They showed no signs of despair. If anything, they seemed to be enjoying themselves. Commander, his second-in-command, reported nervously, "We have listened to human communications. They are making jokes about us. They have created pictures mocking our soldiers. They are comparing us to villains from their entertainment stories and saying we are not as scary." Thalok slammed his fist against his control panel so hard it cracked. How is this possible? We have conquered civilizations 1,000 times more advanced than these primitives. Sir, those civilizations valued staying alive above all else. These humans do not seem to. They appear to value fighting back more than they value survival. They would rather die standing than live on their knees. On Earth, the situation began to change. Human scientists, working day and night without sleep, had studied captured Varaketh technology. They learned how it worked. Within weeks, they had built defenses against the alien plasma weapons. Within months, they'd started making their own versions. A young engineer named Sammy Reyes designed a suit of powered armor. Based on Varketh equipment, he was 24 years old and had dreamed of building robot suits since he was a child. His first design was rough and barely worked. His 100th design was a masterpiece, able to match a Varketh elite soldier in one-on-one combat. You know the best part? Sammy told his team as they tested the armor. I have been designing this in my head since I was 12 years old. I watched too many Japanese robot cartoons. Never thought it would actually be useful. Human factories worked around the clock. Every car factory, every machine shop, every building that could produce anything was now making weapons. Grandmothers learned to assemble rifles. Teenagers learned to drive tanks. Accountants became ammunition counters. Teachers became medics. The whole planet had become a war machine. The Galactic Council watched as humans began pushing the Varketh back. Landing zones that had held thousands of alien troops were overrun by human forces carrying hybrid weapons and impossible determination. They are adapting, Kethra whispered. They are adapting faster than any species I have ever seen. It took the Varketh centuries to develop plasma weapons. The humans copied them in weeks.
Ow.
It is their greatest strength, Zareth replied. And perhaps their greatest danger? A species this adaptable, this aggressive, this completely unwilling to accept any limits. What happens when they turn their attention to the stars? What happens when they come looking for the ones who sent this fleet? No one had an answer, but everyone was afraid to find out. On the ground in Kansas, at the site of the first Varketh landing, a young soldier named Chris Palmer stood over the wreckage of an alien ship. He was 19 years old. He had been in college studying history 2 months ago. Now he was a corporal in what humans were calling the Earth Defense Force. His commanding officer, a woman named Captain Rita Gomez, came to stand beside him. "We are winning, sir," Chris said. It was not a question. He could see it in the way the Varketh were retreating, the way their attacks were becoming weaker and less organized. "We are," Captain Gomez agreed. "But this is just the beginning. We stopped them from taking our planet. Now we have to make sure they never try again." Chris looked up at the sky where he knew thousands of alien ships still waited in orbit. "How do we do that?" Captain Gomez smiled. It was not a nice smile. It was the smile of a predator who had just realized that the hunter had become the hunted. "We take the fight to them," she said. "We build ships of our own, and we show them that Earth is not just a planet to be conquered. We show them that attacking humanity was the worst mistake they ever made." Chris nodded slowly. 2 months ago, the idea of humans flying warships through space would have seemed like fantasy. Now it seemed inevitable. The aliens had come to conquer Earth. They had failed. And now they were going to learn what happened when you made 8 billion humans very, very angry. 6 months after the invasion began, humanity did something that no species in galactic history had ever done before. They launched a counterattack against the Varketh Dominion. It started with a ship called the Defiance. Human engineers had built it using a mix of Earth technology and captured alien equipment. The ship was not pretty. It was uneven, rough-looking, and the engineering team joked that it was held together with hope and tape. But it worked. It flew. And it had weapons that could hurt Varketh ships. Captain Henry. Cole stood on the bridge as the Defiance rose through Earth's atmosphere. He was 53 years old and had spent his whole career in the Navy commanding submarines under the ocean. He never imagined he would command a spaceship. But here he was, leading humanity's first warship into orbit. "All hands, this is the captain," Henry announced over the ship's speaker system. "We are about to make history." Every species in the galaxy said this was impossible. The Varketh expected us to die quietly. Some of our own leaders thought we would have to surrender. They were all wrong. Today, we take the fight to the enemy. Today we show the universe what happens when you threaten Earth. The crew cheered loudly. It was not professional military behavior. It was not proper discipline. It was completely human. The Defiance engaged the Varketh fleet in orbit around Earth. It was not alone. Dozens of fighter craft flew alongside it, launched from aircraft carriers that had been modified for space combat in just a few months. The pilots came from everywhere. Air Force veterans, NASA astronauts, airline pilots, and young people who had learned to fly spacecraft by playing video games. Lieutenant Katie Morgan, whose call sign was Firefly, became the first human ace in space combat. She destroyed 5 enemy fighters in a single battle. She was 26 years old and had been flying commercial planes just 3 months earlier. "These alien ships handle like drunk elephants," she reported over the radio while dodging plasma fire. "I have played harder levels in my video games." The Varketh commanders could not understand what they were seeing. Humans had gone from having no space military to having a working combat fleet in 6 months. This was impossible. It broke every rule of how technology was supposed to develop on Velthros Prime. The Galactic Council watched in stunned silence as the Defiance and its escort ships tore through the Varketh orbital fleet. They built that ship in 6 months, Counselor Vrax said. His voice was shaking. 6 months. It took my species 200 years to build our first ship that could travel between stars. They were motivated, Ambassador Kethra replied. Humans have a saying, necessity is the mother of invention. It seems that facing extinction is the mother of very fast invention. The space battle was only the beginning. Human forces on the ground had pushed the Varkith back to just a few fortified positions. The aliens had lost over 2 million soldiers. Their fighting spirit was broken. Many had started trying to run away, heading for their ships, only to find those ships under attack from above. Supreme Commander Thalax received the reports with growing horror. His invasion, the largest military operation in the history of the Varakith Dominion, had become a disaster. He had underestimated the humans at every step. Sir, his communications officer said nervously, we are receiving a message from the human ship. They are asking for your surrender. Thalax felt something he had never felt before in his life, fear. President Hayes appeared on his screen. Her face was calm and determined. Behind her hung the flags of every nation on Earth, displayed together as one. Supreme Commander Thalax, she said, your invasion has failed. Your fleet is surrounded. Your ground forces are beaten. You have 2 choices. Surrender and face trial for what you have done to humanity. Or keep fighting and watch every single one of your soldiers die. You cannot demand surrender from the Varkith Dominion, Thalax growled, but his voice did not sound strong anymore. We are the greatest military power in the galaxy. We have conquered 100 worlds. And now you have found a world you cannot conquer, Hayes replied. Let me tell you something about humanity, Commander. We do not just fight to stay alive. We fight because we refuse to believe that anything is impo. Sobel, you told us to surrender, and we said no. You told us your weapons were better, and we built better ones. You told us we could not win, and we proved you wrong. She leaned forward, her eyes burning. You came to our home. You threatened our families. You expected us to kneel. That was your first mistake. Your last mistake was thinking that being primitive meant being weak. We have spent our entire existence fighting against a universe that wanted to kill us. Predators, diseases, natural disasters. Each other. You are just the latest thing trying to destroy us. And like everything before you, we will beat you. Alex stared at the screen. No one had ever spoken to him like this. No conquered species had ever dared. You have 1 hour to surrender, Hayes continued. After that, we are coming for you. And Commander, we will not stop at Earth. Your homeworld is next. The transmission ended. Thalax sat in silence for a long time. Then he gave an order he never thought he would give. Signal all ships. Full retreat to Dominion space. Now. The news of the Varkith surrender spread across Earth within minutes. People poured into the streets of every city, celebrating and crying and hugging strangers. The war had cost millions of lives. Cities had been destroyed. Families had been torn apart. But humanity had survived. More than survived. They had won. The Galactic Council received the news with mixed feelings. They were relieved that the Varkith threat was gone. But they were also worried about what might come next. They threatened to attack the Varkith homeworld, Counselor Zareth noted. Do you think they meant it? Kethra thought about her studies of human behavior. When humans make a threat, they usually mean it. But I do not think they want to become conquerors. They are too divided, too individualistic for building empires. Then what do they want? Right now? To be left alone. To rebuild their world. To bury their dead and comfort their families. But eventually they will want to explore. To expand, to find new challenges. And when they do, nothing in this galaxy will ever be the same. On Earth, the celebration continued for weeks. But even as people danced in the streets, plans were being made. Factories that had been building weapons were now building spacecraft. Scientists who had focused on defense were now working on exploration. The whole world was looking up at the stars with new eyes. Admiral Henry Cole, promoted after his victory in the orbital battle. gave a speech to the first graduating class of the new Earth Space Academy. 6 months ago, we did not have a single ship that could leave our own atmosphere. Today, we have a fleet. A year from now, we will have 100 ships. In 10 years, we will be traveling to other star systems. Nothing can stop us. Nothing ever has. Lieutenant Commander Katie Morgan volunteered to lead the first long-range exploration mission. It would take years to reach its destination, but she did not hesitate. "Someone has to go first," she said during her goodbye speech. "Might as well be me." Sammy Reyes started a company to develop new technology for space exploration. His powered armor designs evolved into full-size walking machines, perfect for building things in dangerous places. He never stopped inventing, never stopped improving. And Dorothy Walsh, the elderly woman who had defended her apartment building with a shotgun, wrote a book about her experiences. It became the best-selling book in galactic history, translated into over 300 alien languages. You want to know how to beat an alien invasion? Dorothy wrote in the final chapter, "Do not give up. That is the whole secret. They expect you to surrender. They expect you to see their big ships and decide it is not worth fighting. But everything worth having is worth fighting for. Your home, your family, your world. If you are not willing to fight for those things, you do not deserve to keep them." The Varkith had come to Earth expecting easy prey. They found something else entirely. And now, the galaxy was about to discover what humanity could really do. 5 years after the Varkith invasion, humanity had changed from a primitive species stuck on one planet into a galactic power. The war had united them in ways that decades of politics and diplomacy had failed to do. Countries still existed, but their borders meant less and less. The Earth Defense Alliance, created during the war, had grown into a permanent organization that managed humanity's expansion into space. Danny Price, the young astronomer who had first spotted the Varkith fleet, now worked as Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council. He had never wanted the job, and still was not sure he was qualified for it. But the Council had insisted on dealing with him specifically. They seemed to like his calm manner and honest way of speaking. Ambassador Price, High Counselor Zeroth, addressed him during his first official meeting. "Humanity's actions during the Varkith War have raised concerns among the Council members. Your species has shown abilities that we thought were impossible." Danny nodded slowly. "I understand.
Oh.
You are worried we are going to become the next Varkith, the next conquerors." The council chamber went silent. Danny had a habit of saying what everyone was thinking, but no one wanted to say out loud. "The thought has occurred to us," Zeroth admitted. Danny smiled slightly. "Let me tell you something about humans, Counselor. We're not perfect. We have done terrible things to each other throughout our history. Wars, mass killings, cruelty beyond imagination. We are capable of great evil." The council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "But we are also capable of great good," Danny continued. "We build hospitals to heal the sick, create art that makes people cry with joy, risk our own lives to save strangers we have never met. The same species that invented nuclear bombs also invented vaccines that saved millions of lives. The same people who wage wars also make peace. We are complicated. We are messy. Contradict ourselves constantly." "That does not make me feel better," Counselor Vrack said. "It should not. Not completely. What I am trying to say is that we do not want to conquer the galaxy. That sounds exhausting, honestly. What we want is to explore, to learn, to meet new species and try to understand them. We want to be part of something bigger than just Earth." Danny paused to collect his thoughts. The Varkith attacked us because they thought we were weak and easy to defeat. They were wrong. But we are not going to spend the rest of our existence hunting them down for revenge. That is not who we want to be. We want to be the species that offers a handshake instead of a fist, even if that hand is strong enough to crush anyone who threatens us. The council discussed Danny's words for 3 days. In the end, they voted to give humanity full membership in the galactic community. It was the first time a new species had been admitted in over 500 years. The news was received differently across the galaxy. Many species remained suspicious of the aggressive newcomers. Others saw potential friends and allies. Few, especially those who had suffered under Varkith rule, saw humans as heroes who had done what no one else could. On Earth, reactions were also mixed. Some people wanted to focus on rebuilding and stay away from galactic politics. Others wanted to expand quickly and claim as much territory as possible, while other species were still scared of them. President Hayes, now in her second term of office, pushed for a middle path. "We did not survive the invasion just to become the same as our attackers," she told the Global Assembly. "But we also cannot pretend the rest of the universe does not exist. We need to find a balance between protecting ourselves and reaching out to others." The Earth Defense Alliance began building colonies on Mars, on the moons of Jupiter, and eventually in other star systems. Human ships, built with a mix of their own ideas and alien technology, traveled into unknown space. Some were warships, keeping humanity safe. Others were exploration vessels, mapping new worlds and meeting civilizations that had never heard of Earth. Admiral Henry Cole oversaw the growth of humanity's space fleet. He made sure that the ships and crews kept the spirit that had won the war: creativity, flexibility, and a complete refusal to accept that anything was impossible. "Every officer in this fleet needs to understand something," Henry told his commanders during a planning meeting. "The galaxy has rules and traditions that have worked for thousands of years. We will respect those rules when they make sense, and we will break them when they do not." Commander Katie Morgan led the first human mission to explore beyond the local group of stars. The journey would take decades, but she volunteered without thinking twice. "Someone has to be first," she said. "Might as well be me. I've always wanted to see what is out there." Sammy Reyes built a company dedicated to creating new technology for space travel. His powered armor designs grew into giant walking machines that could build space stations and mine asteroids. He kept inventing until the day he died, always looking for the next improvement. Dorothy Walsh, the grandmother who had fought off aliens with a shotgun, became the most famous human in the galaxy. Her book was required reading on dozens of worlds. She spent her remaining years traveling to alien planets, giving talks about human determination. "The secret to our survival is simple," she told an audience of thousands of different species on Velthros Prime. "We do not know when to quit. Every logical creature would have surrendered when those ships appeared in our sky. We are not logical. We are stubborn. And that stubbornness saved our world." On Velthros Prime, the Galactic Council continued to watch humanity's growth with wonder and worry. Ambassador Kethra, who had become an expert on human culture, regularly updated her colleagues on what the humans were doing. "They are building schools on their colony worlds," she reported during one meeting. "Schools open to any species that wants to learn. They call it the Human Initiative. They are teaching physics, medicine, engineering, art, history. Several of our own species have sent students there. Is it propaganda?" Vrax asked. "A way to spread their influence? Perhaps partly. But the education is real. The knowledge they share is genuine. Students who have attended report excellent experiences." Kethra paused. "I think they simply want to share what they have learned. It is part of who they are." Counselor Zareth thought about this for a long time. What do they actually want? What is their final goal? Kethra had asked Danny Price this same question many times. His answer was always the same. They want to matter. They spent their entire history as a tiny species on a single planet, believing they were alone in the universe. Now they know they are not alone, and they want to prove that humanity is worth remembering. They want to leave a mark on the galaxy that will last forever. And if they succeed, Kethra made the expression she had learned from her human friends. A smile, then the galaxy will be very different. Whether that is good or bad depends on us. Humanity is offering a choice. It can be their friends or their enemies. There is no middle ground with them. They are too stubborn for that. The council session ended without a clear decision. It would take many years, maybe centuries, for the galaxy to fully adjust to humanity's presence. There would be problems, misunderstandings, moments when war seemed possible. But there would also be cooperation, friendship, and the slow building of trust between species that had never spoken before. Danny Price returned to Earth after his first year as ambassador. He was tired, but happy. He stood on the balcony of his parents' house in New Mexico, looking up at the same stars he had watched since he was a child. "We did it," he said quietly to himself. We actually did it. Behind him, the television showed footage of human doctors helping disaster victims on a distant planet. Nearby, a human artist was working with an alien sculptor on a monument celebrating peace between species. Somewhere, far away in space, a human explorer was meeting beings who had never seen a creature from Earth before. Humanity was not perfect. They were still violent sometimes, still competitive, still prone to fighting among themselves. But they were also curious, kind when it mattered, and completely unwilling to believe that anything was beyond their reach. The galaxy had been afraid when humanity arrived. Maybe, with time, that fear would turn into something else. Maybe it would turn into hope. The Varkith Dominion watched from their distant worlds. They had tried to destroy Earth and failed.
Oh.
They could only wonder what these impossible creatures would do next. Some of them even felt something they had never felt for any species before: respect. The stars stretched out. In every direction, full of mysteries and dangers and opportunities, humanity had taken its first steps into that vast darkness. They were ready for whatever came next. And somewhere in the back of their minds, every alien species in the galaxy had the same thought: thank goodness the humans are on our side, 'cause nobody wants to find out what happens when they are not. The universe had changed forever, and it was only the beginning.